Art Makers was made possible by the San Luis Obispo County Office of Education, Studios on the Park in Paso Robles, and the Arts Collaborative.
Hi, welcome to Art Makers. My name is Michelle Rollins, and I teach art lessons for students here at Studios on the Park in Paso Robles. And today I'm really excited because we're going to, hey, what's going on? I look different, don't I? You can tell that it's me, but it's not very realistic. The lines and shapes make it look like it's me, but it's not really me. Oh, okay, I'm back. That was a fun video effect, and it reminded me of Impressionism. And that's an art movement that we're going to learn about today. The founder was Claude Monet. You're going to love his paintings. I know I do. And then later, we're going to create an impressionistic art project together. Let's get started. Before we meet Claude Monet, we have to go back in time and learn about the Salon. In 1648, the French King Louis XIV gave his approval for an art school called the Royal Academy of Painting and Sculpture. The academy educated and encouraged artists and helped them find work. The academy organized the first Salon in 1667. The Salon was an art exhibit that featured works by recent graduates. It was a big hit, and for the next 200 years, the Salon became one of the most important art shows in the world. Artists submitted paintings to be judged by the Salon critics. If the judges found the painting to be exceptional, it would be featured in the exclusive Salon art exhibition. Showing a painting in the Salon was a great honor and a must for any serious artist. To have a successful career, an artist just had to be in the Salon. It was that important. The problem was, over time, the Salon became too powerful. Salon art critics had a very rigid definition of art. They believed that the craft of painting should only be done in the traditional way. When selecting artworks for the Salon show, they favored realism. If a painting looks very lifelike, like a photograph, that's called realism. And the Salon critics used to think that that was the only way to use paint and create art. Their beliefs had a profound effect on European art, since it enabled a small group of critics to dictate the definition of art. For a few hundred years, the Academy and the Salon art critics maintained almost total control over all teaching and exhibition of art. If you wanted to be a successful artist, you had to paint in the style of realism. You would be ignored if you painted any other way. And that became a problem for Claude Monet. The year is 1865, and Claude Monet is a 25-year-old French artist who has 2 paintings accepted by the Paris Salon show. That's a great accomplishment for someone so young. One of his paintings, The Mouth of the Seine at Honfleur, received praise by critics, artists, and the public. The painting is realistic, with the wind whipping at the waves and sails. In 1866, 2 more of Monet's paintings were accepted. Again, this was a great achievement for a young painter. However, Monet's success at Salon ran into trouble over the next few years. Out of 6 paintings that he submitted, only 1 was accepted. Instead of changing his style to satisfy the Salon art critics, Monet forged ahead with the goal to paint in a new way. Claude Monet and some of his other artist friends decided to pursue a radical idea, painting outdoors. The traditional way was to paint inside a studio, like this one. But Claude Monet believed that art should be directly inspired by nature, which meant painting outdoors. They called it en plein air, which in French means painting in the open air. It would become fundamental to the Impressionist style. Monet and his friends wanted to break away from the traditional style of realism. Instead, they wanted to capture changing light, movement, and other qualities found in the moment. Monet and his artist friends wanted their work to reflect the artist's poetic feelings about what was happening. Gone was the desire to achieve detailed, realistic scenes. Instead, their paint strokes were loose and fast, almost without fear of making a mistake. They were creating illusions of reality. They concentrated on light, colors, and shapes. This style allows the artist to express their interpretation of the moment using a unique style. In 1874, Monet and a few of his artist friends put together their own art show. They called themselves the Anonymous Society of Painters, Sculptors, and Printmakers. A local critic came to the show and wrote about Monet's painting, which was called Impression, Sunrise. In the article, the critic described the whole show as an exhibition of impressionists. He got the word impressionist from Claude Monet's painting, and it stuck. That's how Claude Monet became the founder of Impressionism. Impression, Sunrise, is considered the first impressionistic artwork, and it represents a revolutionary change in subject matter as well as in painting technique. The lighting in this artwork gives the viewer the feeling or impression that the sun is just rising. From far away, an impressionistic painting often has a hazy or softened look. Up close, the brushstrokes are visible and fast. The traditional salon critics said this showed carelessness and incompleteness. However, the Impressionists liked this style. They felt that bold and loose brushstrokes gave the impression that the air and light moved around the subject. Here's an example. This is a painting of two blue vases, right? But if you look at it closely, the brushstrokes suggest petals, glass, shadows, and light. It creates an impression of the vases and flowers. Claude Monet painted en plein air in many locations, but a favorite place was his garden in Giverny, France. He enjoyed painting the flowers, pond, and water lilies. He often created a series of paintings on a subject to show how it changed over time and from season to season. He spent the last 30 years of his life working on series about water lilies, which became about 250 paintings. When you stand back 10 feet or so, this painting blends into a beautiful, colorful landscape found in Monet's garden. Up close, you'll see very short brushstrokes painted onto the canvas. In this painting, look how he worked rapidly with the goal to jot down a visual impression. He also used thick and thin layers, often allowing lower layers of color to pass through. This was painted in one of his gardens. His son, Michel, is playing with his wagon. Doesn't it look like a beautiful, bright day with dazzling sunflowers all around? On the path, the brilliant sunlight is dappled with shade that falls in blues, plums, and various greens. Figures and faces are loosely defined with color. Look how he created the shape of the wagon using only a few strokes. And here's a very different painting. The House of Parliament at sunset has an almost ghostly impressionistic approach. The buildings are filtering through one of London's famous foggy days as the sunset glistens on the water. From a distance, Monet's brushstrokes blend to become pleasure boats on the River Seine. However, Up close, each dab of paint is distinct, and the scene dissolves into a mosaic of paint. Brilliant, unblended tones of blue, red, green, and yellow. Quick strokes mimic the playful lapping water. In the trees, thicker paint is applied in a denser, stubbier way. Notice how just a few quick strokes create the people sailing or rowing in the background. Thinking mostly about color and shapes, Monet wanted to capture the beauty of nature as it appeared to him at that moment, with the sun casting shadows and everything gently touched by the breeze. Impressionism is a very popular style among many artists today, and realism never really went away. We just made more room to create different art. Here at Studios on the Park, you can see artists working in the Impressionist style, and artists who work in a more realistic way. Claude Monet did something revolutionary. By abandoning older, traditional painting techniques, he helped open the door for new artists and many modern art movements to come. Now that we've learned about Claude Monet, I think we should create our own Impressionism landscape painting. This lesson is super fun and really easy, so let's get started. First, I like to get my paintbrush really wet, and I start with yellow paint. So because I'm using watercolor, I need to wake up my paint. So I say, wake up yellow, and I put some water in my yellow paint and swirl it around, and I go back to the water and back to the paint and keep adding water until I feel like my yellow paint is really ready to go. And I just very quickly go across the bottom of my paper, back and forth with long, smooth strokes all the way across, just to cover the bottom with yellow. It doesn't have to be perfect, because Impressionism isn't about that. Impressionism is about capturing a moment. So there, I have it covered in yellow. Now, I'm going to wake up my orange paint. So I go back to my water and I say, wake up orange, and I go back and forth a few times, adding some water and mixing it into my orange paint. Now, just like the yellow, I go back and forth across the middle. Long, smooth strokes, just trying to get that orange down. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. I am trying to cover up most of the white, so it is okay if I overlap. In fact, it's even better if I overlap just a little bit. I'm using color to set the background for my painting. Sometimes I need to add more water just to help smooth it out a little bit. That looks pretty good. Now, I'm doing a landscape, and so the top of my paper is going to be the sky. So what color do you think I'm going to use next? It's going to have to be blue, right? So I start waking up my blue. Takes a little bit of water, back and forth. Wake up blue. We're going to paint a sky. So now, back and forth, right across the top. Getting that nice blue sky color all the way across the top of my paper. Sometimes I just add water to thin out the color and make it more light like a sky. And again, it's okay if it overlaps, because I'm trying to cover up as much of the white on my paper as I can. Okay, now I do need my yellow paint to be mostly dry when I do the next step. So I go ahead and I check, and it's mostly dry right now, so I can do the next step. If your paint isn't mostly dry yet, you're going to have to wait just a few minutes. But my yellow paint is nice and dry already. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint some stems for my flowers. So I'm going to use green. And so I wake up my green. And while I'm waking up my green, I think about adjectives, because all of my stems are going to use an adjective. So an adjective is a word that describes something. So when I'm thinking about stems, I'm thinking about words like wiggly or tall or straight or short. So you can choose what adjective you would like to use for your stems and start painting your stems. Whatever adjectives you want to use. You can make them all the same, or you can choose different adjectives. Looks like I'm using curly, tall, short, curved. Those look good. And I just keep painting stems until I feel like I have enough for my painting. Sometimes I do a lot, sometimes I do a little. That looks good for today. So then I rinse my brush really well. Now I need to wait for my stems to dry before I paint the flowers on top. So I change what I'm doing and I'm going to go back to the sky. So my sky looks pretty, but I would like to just add some fun color to my sky. So I'm going to wake up my purple. I say, wake up, purple. And I wiggle my brush around, add some more water, and I start adding some purple accents to my sky. So just use short little brush strokes. Just quick strokes to add a little bit of color. I'm not trying to cover up the blue, I'm just trying to add to it. And this is where it gets kind of peaceful, and I can just play with the paint and enjoy how the color adds something to the sky. Sometimes I use water just to blend it in. Sometimes I leave the brush strokes more solid. Just depends on how I feel. Impressionism is a lot about how you feel. So then I'm pretty much done with that part, and now I need to wait for my stems to dry. While I'm waiting for my stems to dry, I think about, what color do I want my flowers to be? Today, I think I want them to be red. So I'm going to wake up my red. So how do I wake it up? I add a lot of water, and I say, wake up, red. And I'm going to add extra water because this is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to add extra water and get it nice and stirred in. And then I'm going to put my paintbrush down. And I'm going to use a different tool to make my flowers. I'm going to use my finger. So I take my finger and I put it in the paint, and then I press it on the top of my stem. And that's going to just leave a red mark on the top. Now, it doesn't look like a flower exactly, but it gives the impression of a flower. When you look at it, and they're all put together, it's going to look like a field of flowers. So I just go along with my finger and keep adding red paint for flowers. And I can work quickly and make this happen pretty quick, as if I'm standing in a field of flowers and I'm trying to capture that moment. So that looks pretty good. Sometimes I change my mind and I use my pinky in a different color and I add to it. So you can try that too. Don't forget to rinse your fingers off. I hope you enjoyed learning about Claude Monet and Impressionism.